Drew, what do you want for the new year?
Me personally, a beverage about this tall.
You know what Wisconsin wants?
What do they want?
A new bowl game trophy.
You know, Early, sometimes them football boosters will provide your family with a car or even house if you keep nice and quiet about it. They're gonna do what now?
Welcome to the place where if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying is a way of life.
Just keep it down home, cuz.
Where degenerate gamblers can congregate in peace.
Money, yeah. Money, yeah.
Where screaming at 20-year-old kids on TV is just another Saturday.
Every fiber in your bone, and you take it and you beat the piss out of them. I'm talking about beat the piss out of them. Let's go whip their ass. Let's go.
Where game days don't end until the Rainbow Warriors say so.
It hits the upright. Oh my God! It hits the left upright. It hits the left upright.
They are the bagmen that Danny Sheridan never found.
I went to him with a strong-ass offer.
And it all comes to you with a splash of bourbon on the side. Woo! This is the Friends of the Program podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into yet another episode of the Friends of the Program podcast, the final one of 2020 as we get the hell out of this dreadful year and onto something hopefully new and better in just a couple of days. We're back after a week off, taking the week off for the holiday. That's on me. I was out of town in a place probably doesn't have internet and things like that. So, you know, that's what happens in Alabama. Yeah,
They do have a mini mall, though.
They do have a mini mall in Montgomery.
They do.
The flea market, actually. But it's just like a mini mall. It's actually a flea market, but it's just like a mini mall.
And it's in
but back home in Texas and ready to wrap up this season. Welcome in myself. I'm Brad Tillery. This is Drew McCracken. On the other side of it, you're hearing from. You can always follow us real quick on FOT Podcast via Twitter. Same on Instagram at FOT Podcast. Follow us on like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'm losing what I'm talking about via YouTube by searching Friends of the Program, and same for iTunes and Spotify. Drew, how was your holiday, my friend?
It was good. Don't worry, Brad. It's just like you remember the last week of school? Like it's just the posters are off the walls. The teachers don't care anymore. That's sort of the mode.
Yeah, have you ever seen the movie Why Him by chance?
No.
Okay. Bryan Cranston. It's a rom-com kind of thing. He plays an older dad who doesn't know stuff, and his daughter's marrying some like hip guy who's rich and stuff like that. And the younger guy tells Bryan Cranston, your head's full of bukkake. And that's pretty much what's going on right now. It's just
I mean, if there's something I want my head full of, wouldn't be that. That is.
He didn't understand what it meant, but
I figured. At least it wasn't an Okie cookie or something.
Anyway, let's get moving on. When we last left you guys, Auburn had just fired Gus Malzahn, and all the craziness that we kind of filled you in on behind the scenes that was going on. Yeah. Since then, Auburn's athletic director, Alan Green, said, you know what? Everybody back off. I got this. Still a lot of stuff went on behind the scenes, is our understanding, folks. But essentially, the administration just finally said, we're going to do what we want to do. And Auburn went and hired the candidate out of left field that I don't think anybody had on their radar, Brian Harsin from Boise State, heading down to the Plains to take over for the Tigers. He's a Boise graduate, played football there, has a 69-19 record at Boise State over the last 7 years. And the funny thing, the last time Gus Malzahn left the job, he left Arkansas State. Who took that job?
Brian Harsin.
He came over as the offensive coordinator from Texas to Arkansas State for 1 year before moving up to Boise. Won the conference while at Arkansas State, won 3 conference titles at Boise, never finished worse than second in the Mountain West. It's a very non-Auburn hire. Traditionally, in the last 20, 25 years, especially, it's been the Southern guy, somebody with ties to Auburn. It's actually going back to the Tuberville days. A former assistant of the previous coach was always the next head coach. I don't think we've seen a true outside hire like this since Pat Dye in 1980.
I can actually go on record and say that this is the first time that Auburn has hired somebody that either A, hasn't been a former assistant, B, is from the Southeast, or B, has or was an assistant at Auburn, has ties somewhere to Auburn through another coach, or is from the SEC, has ever coached the SEC. For the first time since 1948, when Earl Brown was named the head coach for a whole 3 seasons.
So Dye never had ties to Auburn before he came. He was an Alabama assistant, long time under Bear Bryant, played football at Georgia, Southern guy, but never actually ties to Auburn. Correct. Coached at Wyoming, coached in East Carolina. But it's an out of nowhere hire. Now, I liked it the minute I heard it. Mm-hmm. I wanted new blood. You know that. I wanted something. Yep. I wanted somebody with a winning track record. And then the press conference absolutely blew me away when Brian Harsin had his press conference New Year's Eve. But would love to get your thoughts on what Auburn was able to pull off before we move away from the Tigers, because we don't really give a damn about their bowl game, and move on to what actually matters.
You are so correct. Before I get into it, I don't know if I've ever, as an Auburn fan, I have never been more excited for after the bowl game.
Yeah.
Than I am.
I truly don't care about the bowl game.
I'm gonna watch.
I might.
I'm gonna flip back and forth between that and Cincy and Georgia.
I got money on Cincy and Georgia. That's what I'm more interested in.
No. I got money on that on the Auburn game as well. But no, I've never felt where I'm like, and just get out. Not that I'm thankful for the players and thankful for everybody that's going to put on the I think the white jerseys. So the AU helmet, we'll say. But I just Auburn's got a bunch of players out, so does Northwestern. But as far as the hire goes, I've heard the national pundits say, wow, Auburn really just hired Gus 2.0, which I don't
see that at all.
As far as an offense philosophy, maybe?
Not really. Not really even. Harsin's offenses go under center.
Yeah.
They're very multiple. It's more pro set.
Plus, the whole 69-19, which is by far the highest winning percentage Auburn has ever hired a head coach from coming in. I absolutely love this hire. It is now. That being said, I love it from let's see what happens, because this is a combustible element type of situation.
Oh,
because what is and for better or for worse, this is what you get when you sign up for Auburn. What are the boosters going to do if he loses a game? Because he's probably going to lose a game. Won't be game 1, might be game 3.
Might be game 2, Penn State on the road.
That's right. It's game 2. Game 2, you're going to Happy Valley against a team that's going to look to prove something against the visitors in Penn State. Because I don't know if you heard this, Penn State wasn't very good this year.
Sure.
So I'm interested to see what happens there. But just on the blush and after the press conference, you mentioned it. Absolutely knocked it. He won the press conference. That's the one thing that he could do, Brian Harsin, that is, before 2020 ended for Auburn fans, is knock it out of the park for the presser. And that's what he went out and did.
Well, my biggest complaint about, honestly, SEC football fans in general, but especially Auburn fans, is they don't really pay attention to football much outside of the SEC. And one of the biggest things you kept hearing from Auburn fans is, who? They literally had no clue who Brian Harsin was.
And I'm not going to knock people for not knowing who Brian Harsin is. He's a Power 5, or he's a group of 5.
He's the head coach at Boise State, man.
I know.
It's not like it's just some also ran Power 5 program.
I agree. But for the average fan who, if you look, any average fan at the beginning of this season, who's going to be in the playoff? Well, it's going to be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and I don't know, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. Those are the fans that are going to not know who Brian Harsin is on the blush. Now, then I say Boise State head coach, and they go, oh, well, he's got to be a good head coach because they're a good program.
Yeah, it's just kind of amazing to me. That was the initial reaction from everybody was who that I kind of heard. I like the fact that he's 44 and has 8 years as a head coach under his belt. I think that's an amazing trait to have to come into this job.
Absolutely.
I like the fact that he has seemingly the mentality it's going to take to win at Auburn. Now, I'm with you. It's going to require patience because you're about to see a bunch of attrition. What I think you're going to see are some players that we're already seeing. Anthony Schwartz is probably heading out, speedster. I would fully expect Seth Williams to declare. Who's the best receiver on the team. Several others have already said they're out. Christian Tutt's gone. I think a few others too. Sherwood's gone. Yeah. And I think you're going to see more attrition than that. Quite frankly, Gus Malzahn was a player's coach.
Yeah.
I don't foresee that being the case here. And I think there's going to be a rude awakening for some of these guys on this team when we get to practice in the spring. I think practices are going to be harder and more physical than they're used to. There's probably going to be a new set of coaches, and I think that's necessary. It might cost you a recruit or two. It might cost you a transfer or two, but cleaning house with a lot of the stuff that's gone on the back end probably needs to happen here and just start fresh with a clean slate. So, next year's one of those seasons where if Auburn goes 7-5, 8-4, you kind of have to just be okay with it. Understanding that offensive line recruiting in particular has been awful for the last 3 years, and you don't fix that overnight.
Yeah.
But what I think Auburn fans could be okay with next year, and it's weird, you're like, well, why would you fire one 7-5, 8-4 coach for another one? If the Tigers go into Death Valley next year and they're competitive and not getting blown out against LSU or even have a chance to win, if they're playing with vigor at home against Georgia, if they go to A&M next year and continue that win streak, which they haven't, to Gus's credit, he's never lost at A&M.
Nope.
Right? But that's the kind of thing, to me, the first test is at Penn State, because I don't remember the last time Auburn won a monster road game. It's been a long, Ole Miss 2014 might be it. That was the battle between two top 5 teams at the time, with college football playoff rankings happening that year for the first time ever. I think that's the last time Auburn won a really big road game.
Yeah.
So, and I would qualify, even though Penn State's bad this year, I would qualify that as a really big road game next year. So I think that's the first test. How do you look on the road? Because Bo Nix has played awful football in big road games. And quite frankly, Auburn hasn't shown up in big road games. So I think that's the test next year. How does he look in those? How does the team look in those? Because you and I both know Pat Dye history, and the first season they lost a game at Tennessee. Close game, fought their butt off. And there's a speech that Pat Dye gave that is revered in Auburn lore, which is sometimes you're going to lay your guts on the line and you're going to lose. And the only thing you can do is get back up and lay them on the line again the next week.
Yep.
And that set the foundation for the decade-long run of dominance, actually, in the SEC that Auburn went on. It's the best decade Auburn's ever had consistently for football.
And really and truly, for the historians of Auburn, it really set into motion everything that happened up until 2010. Sure, there were bumps in the road at 98 and 90 and the early 90s and everything like that, and 2008. But really and truly, that day set into motion step-by-step process that led Auburn to a 2010 season, the fan base doing everything that it could to get them to that point. But no, the other thing, and I'll stop here. But the other thing that I just don't understand is, and I get that it's radio people and they have to have something to talk about, and it's all they really have to hold on to is, well, he's never been in the Southeast. He's never really recruited the Southeast.
Dumbest take I've ever heard in my life.
So what is he doing? What, you have to be from the Southeast to recruit this area and have these contacts. No, you don't. No, you don't.
2 names. Two names.
Do it.
Nick Saban, Urban Meyer.
Yep.
Neither one of them, the first time they stepped in the SEC had ever coached a game in the Southeast as an assistant or as a head coach.
Nope.
Nick Saban came from Michigan State down to LSU, built to power. Urban Meyer came from Utah, previously at Bowling Green.
Correct.
And built to power at Florida. Good coaching brings in good recruiting. It's that simple.
Well, and not just that, but this is not, especially in today's day and age, think about this. Dan Mullen just got an NCAA probation from off-campus recruiting. Oh, my gosh. What are they going to do? Florida can't recruit now because their head coach can't go off-campus. No, that's not true. They have assistant coaches. Watch to see what Brian Harsin does with his staff. I wouldn't be shocked if I know that you said it's like I wouldn't be shocked if Carnell Williams stays. I wouldn't be shocked if Travis Williams stays on staff.
Yeah, I think there's going to be one or two guys that'll end up staying.
I could see both of those guys because those are your connections. Sure, your offensive coordinator is going to be somebody that you trust. Defensive coordinator is probably going to be a guy that he trusts and knows from out on the West Coast, but is still an up-and-coming coach, which, if it's who I think it is.
You're looking at it, Oregon?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's word that he might be actually up for the Boise head coaching job, though.
But I've also heard that a current Dallas Cowboys.
I've heard the same. Offensive coordinator looks like it might be the guy from Arizona State. I can't think of his name right now, but the OC.
Hill.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm fine with both of those. But I'm thinking that I'm pulling for Kellen Moore getting the Boise State job because then things line up really nicely.
Here's the interesting thing. I don't know if you saw this. Boise has come out and said they're not intending to make a hire for 2 months. They said they might drag this thing out to March. I don't understand it. You still have a signing day in like 5 weeks.
I was about to say that's a whole lot of
lag time for a search. I don't get it. But
someone's going to cut the bluegrass.
But yeah, I'm with you on the recruiting. I don't understand the fascination with needing the Southern ties. I mean, hell, man, Tua Tagovailoa came from Hawaii.
Exactly. I mean, Alabama is a national brand, so there's that.
They also just went into Texas and got 7 top recruits out of the state of Texas this year. Alabama did.
For every coach that has come into the South. I mean, in that case, Jeremy Pruitt, Derek Dooley, who else do you want to throw in here? Ray Goff.
They all should have been great.
All should have been fantastic because they were from the South. Mike Dubose, Mike Shula. I mean, you keep throwing names up against the wall. What about Dennis Franchione? Wasn't he pretty good at that for a couple of seasons there at Alabama? Yeah. I don't remember him having any SEC ties. Maybe I'm wrong. But just because you were from another part of the country doesn't mean you're going to be terrible as a single person in the SEC. Yeah. It's going to depend on what your staff looks like, who you have supporting you, and who you have going out there making those connections. Because, again, just like Brad said, Urban Meyer and Nick Saban didn't have those connections when they started at Florida and LSU.
Good coaching attracts the top talent. It's that simple. All right, that's enough Auburn talk. We're done. Fine. Let's talk about the Big 6 games, actually the Big 5, because by the time this happens, it'll be New Year's 5 because the 6 New Year's game kicks off tonight. We're in about an hour and a half.
Please let that happen so it don't sound dumb.
Yeah, we're recording here on Wednesday night about an hour and a half or so before that game kicks off. We both like Oklahoma, just for the record, before this game kicks off. The spread has gone to 8.5. It was like 2 a couple of days ago.
It was a couple of days.
Florida was favored, right?
Favorite by 4.
Yeah. Oklahoma's now.
Because I got Oklahoma plus some points in that game.
Yeah, see, and now it's like if you look at go to the casino, I'm like, I don't know that I play this game at 8.5. Even with Florida missing people, I don't like 8.5 at all.
But I think it's going to be about 10, but I don't want to touch it.
I wouldn't touch 8.5. I love the over at 64.5, though.
I do love that.
That I think is, although Oklahoma's defense has played well lately. I don't know. All right. So let's move on to the other New Year's 6 games after the fantastic Duke's Mayo Bowl earlier today, which if you didn't catch the joke at the beginning of the show, by the way, go look up the celebration for Wisconsin in the Duke's Mayo Bowl locker room because they broke the trophy.
Dancing with the trophy, and then Scotty dropped it, broke it, and then it was like a Family Guy episode where they just like, crap. Yeah, I didn't do it.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
All right. We'll start in the Peach State with the Peach Bowl, as it'll be the first game New Year's Day. Number 9 Georgia takes on number 8 Cincinnati. Georgia's going to wear the black uniforms for the game, Drew, and going with the blackout unis. They're a 7-point favorite. By the way, we're not doing pick'ems or anything. This is just us talking about games. Drew has won the pick'em for the year by a game. So we'll finish out that later with his bourbon choice to end up the show and let him know what I need to send.
Yeah.
Pappy
Van Winkle.
Well, yeah, okay, let's be real here. I did see a bar last week with Pappy on the shelf for $30. It was kind of amazing. But
there's a bar here in Nashville that's busting open a case tomorrow.
Yeah, this one actually it was Pappy 12 year, wasn't 23, but Pappy 12 year for $35 a shot. It was not terribly priced. I was kind of amazed.
That's a doable.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the game. Cincinnati and Georgia early in the morning. Georgia's missing 11 starters for this game, Drew. 11 starters, and yet they're still 7-point favorites. You know where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know where I'm at.
And that's why this is, I mean, don't get me wrong. I get why Georgia's wearing the black unis to try to confuse Cincinnati because Cincinnati wears black jerseys at home. Maybe they can get Ritter to throw a couple of interceptions to the black uniforms. I don't get how this line hasn't jumped. I don't get it. Because don't get me wrong, JT Daniels really turned it on and looked good after the Mississippi State game because it didn't look great during that Mississippi State game. But as far as I know, Cincinnati's treating this like a ball game. Like they are
just off for not getting the playoff.
I think you're right. Like here's the thing, and in this year of all years, I have learned no news is fantastic news. When nobody's saying anything, fantastic, even better. And I have not heard a peep out of Luke Fickell in Cincinnati. Not a word. I actually heard, I was listening this morning, I heard an interview with a guy from the local Cincinnati beat writer for the Bearcats. That's the first thing that I've heard about Cincinnati. Outside of that, everything's been, well, Georgia sat down 11 starters, and this guy's out. They're going to wear black uniforms. Look, if you're in the Peach Bowl, I get that this year's weird, and this is a road game. For Georgia, this is a home game. You're going into the Georgia Dome for the first time since 2nd and 26.
Oh, the Benz.
No, I'm sorry.
It's the Benz.
They
lost the title game last year.
They lost the title game. Yeah, they lost to LSU. Okay, so it's the first time you've been in the Benz.
They've only won in the Benz once, I think, and that was the Auburn game.
I know.
I think that's the only time they've won there.
Since you got run over by Joe Burrow, then.
Yeah.
I've got to take Cincinnati. I've got money on Cincinnati. I'm riding the Bearcats on the money line.
If you plus 220 on the money line, right here, run and get it while you still can, people.
I'm all over this one, and I have Northwestern minus points against Auburn.
I think people saw Cincinnati struggle against Tulsa and discount Tulsa's ability to play some defense, quite frankly, without paying attention to the fact that Georgia hasn't really beaten anybody this year.
Auburn's their best win.
And Auburn's not good.
Missouri, yeah, you could make an argument with me.
They're still a 4-16, 5-5. They weren't good.
Yeah.
So I think you have that combination, plus the fact that it's just name recognition. But 11 starters? You're down 11 starters in a game that I can't see Georgia being excited to play.
I don't see it.
This is one of those, if I lose it, fine, whatever. But
fine, whatever.
The shot and the logical play is to take Cincinnati, because I think even if Georgia was fully healthy, this is a 4-quarter ball game.
No, if this is September 22nd, I'd probably take Georgia to win.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I still think it's a 4-quarter ball game.
The fact that Pickens and Daniels will be out there gives me pause. However, something tells me that Luke Fickell knows defense and how to take away a weapon.
Yeah, he can scheme around that. I'm riding Cincinnati all day on this one.
Give me the Bearcats.
We'll do the playoff games last, so we're actually going to skip over real quick to Saturday, January 2nd. Let's go out to Glendale, Arizona is where that is, actually. I was about to say Tempe, but it's been years since they played in Tempe. Oregon, coming off the Pac-12 title win after sneaking into that one, they will play Iowa State, who dropped a tough ball game to Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship. Iowa State had a chance to make a comeback and win that game late. Mm-hmm. I think entertainment-wise, this may be the most fun of all of the Power 6 games, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, the non-playoff games.
I think this one and the next one that we're going to talk about could be the two most fun to watch. Iowa State's a 4-point favorite. Where are you headed?
I'm leaning towards Iowa State. I think that they feel like not that they got jobbed, but they did themselves a disservice in Dallas a couple of days ago, 10-ish days ago. I feel like they were the better team.
For much of that game, they were. Yeah.
For most of that game. Don't get me wrong. Oklahoma's did anything that they wanted to in that first quarter. And you can make an argument with me on the first half. But outside of that, Iowa State played a much more complete ball game in the second half. And if it isn't for an errant pass from Purdy, I think that they pulled that game back off. Oregon had a lot of opt-outs at the beginning of the season and never had them join them again after the Pac-12 decided to actually suit up for the year. So I'm going to give you the points, and I'll take Iowa State to win by about 7.
Well, first of all, tickets are as low as $344 on the secondary market to get into this game. So,
well, I mean, to get out of Ames, Iowa, I don't want to do.
I actually think it is mostly Iowa State fans just getting out, trying to figure out that. I like Oregon straight up. I don't even care about the points. I like the money line on Oregon. I like the money line on Oregon against USC.
Yeah.
And I like them here. I think their offensive line is starting to figure some stuff out. They moved the ball very well in that Pac-12 title game.
And the other surprising thing with that Oregon USC game was every time USC dropped back to pass, it was an interception.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't help but throw it to Oregon players.
Oregon's one of those teams where I would watch very carefully next year because you got a bunch of opt-outs this year, meaning a lot of young guys played and got even in 7 games. They got experience. They still won a championship. However they went and did it, they still got a ring. I don't care. End of the day, it's just going to say 2020 Pac-12 champions, the Oregon Ducks.
Exactly.
So, I like Oregon. I like what Iowa State's been doing. I think Matt Campbell's a great head coach, especially for what he gets up at Ames, Iowa, talent-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But the Ducks are a team that I have my eye on for next year, and I think this game will solidify this year. And Mario Cristobal finds a way to win this football game.
Good. I like it.
All right. Other non-playoff game as far as the Big Six Bowls go. This one's intriguing. Texas A&M misses the playoff, rightfully so, by the way, as the 5th-ranked team in the country. By the way, neither Notre Dame or Texas A&M really deserve to be in there. I will go to my grave saying that should have been Cincinnati in that 4th spot, but that's just me.
Should have died a whole long time ago.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know if you actually saw, if you took the 1 through 8 rankings and had an 18 playoff this year, did you see the matchups that would have brought you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like you had Oregon and Clemson. Oh, not Oregon. No. Yeah. Oh gosh, no, it wasn't. It was somebody else. Florida and Clemson or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Alabama, Clemson. It would have been
no. Alabama and Cincinnati were like 1 and 8.
Cincinnati, sorry.
Yeah.
And then Texas A&M, Notre Dame.
You know what? I saw Oregon and Clemson because somebody gave Oregon an automatic spot for being a Power 5.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But either way, it was fun. Like A&M Notre Dame was in there, and Ohio State was going to play. Oh no, I saw Ohio State playing Cincinnati, and Alabama was going to play somebody else. I forgot, but it was fun what I saw.
Probably Alabama playing Oregon or something.
Yeah, something like that. Either way. So let's go down to the Orange Bowl real quick. Texas A&M, ranked 5th in the country, taking on North Carolina, ranked number 13. A&M was 7.5-point favorite, Drew.
I was really, really high on North Carolina when this one got announced because, truth be told, I don't think Texas A&M's that good.
I don't either.
I think that they have a really good running game, and I think they have a good offensive line, which is their running game. If you are able to somehow corral Spiller in that backfield and make Kellen Mond throw to beat you, it ain't gonna happen. Just look at what Alabama was able to do, and that was before Alabama's good defense came about. That was still the Ole Miss defense that Alabama was playing. So I was really, really high on North Carolina. And then some of the opt-outs came out in the past couple of days and totally changed my opinion on that. I don't see they still have Sam Howell in the backfield. I don't know who he's going to throw it to. I don't know who's going to run the ball. Outside of that, maybe Mac Brown gets something done. I hope he does because I've already laid down some cash on North Carolina before all that. Better odds. Which is what I did against with the Oklahoma-Florida game, but this one might come back to bite me. But I'm gonna take Texas A&M. I don't like that 7.5 number even with, but I could see them anacondaing this thing and choking them out at 10-14.
Yeah, I love North Carolina before all the opt-outs too. And I thought they were going to win the game straight up. I thought they would put up enough points where A&M couldn't keep up with them. Now, yeah, I'm with you. I think the Anaconda thing is right. They're just going to choke them out. It's going to be boring. It's going to be slow. Plotting football. It's the kind of football 15 years ago that I would have just loved.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and I still kind of do because I love just watching dudes, the offensive line, take over a football game.
No, this is going to look a lot like the Texas A&M Auburn game from earlier this year, where North Carolina is trying to figure itself out on offense.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Texas A&M just steamrolls and hits a couple of dink and dunk passes that makes Kellen Mond look like a hero, and really he's not doing anything.
Yeah.
He's just not turning it over like he used to.
Well, he almost did in the Auburn game. He tried to. He threw it right at a defender.
Don't get me wrong. We're not where we are without that ball bouncing off of Jacoby McClain.
Yeah, so thanks. Good job.
Yeah,
Gus Malzahn's tenure legitimately began and ended basically on a tip pass first year last year. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the playoffs because those are the final two games we do want to talk about here. And we'll do a full-on playoff prediction as far as who we think will both win the national championship before we actually get to the national title game because it's fun.
Yeah.
First one, can we just start laughing now at the Cotton Bowl? Or the Rose Bowl being played in Dallas.
The Rotten Bowl, as I'm sorry to call it, the Rosie Cotton Bowl.
Like 19.5 isn't enough, is it?
No.
Alabama's just going to destroy Notre Dame.
No, this is a 35.
Oh,
I do love the under at 65 and a hook. Or I like the over at 65 and a hook in this particular scenario. Because I think this is going to be, I see Notre Dame putting up points because they've got a pretty decent offense.
Their offense can move the ball a little. Yeah.
Now, this is still going to be a 35-point whipping. It's going to look a lot like the LSU-Oklahoma game from last year where Oklahoma still put up 28 to 32-ish.
But never stood a chance.
But never, at no point in that game did you go, wow, this is going to be a football game. No, this is going to be that because Alabama can just go out there and go 52 and make it so. So I think Alabama gets. I could see 52-55 for Alabama.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the over a lot. Bama's gonna I'm taking Bama at the over, and I'm parlaying that on its own.
Yeah, no, same here.
It's the only.
The moment that Georgia Cincinnati game goes final, or the Auburn Northwestern game goes final,
I'm reinvesting.
just turning over winnings. I'm reinstituting and rolling over.
Other game rematch from last year and a fantastic game in the Fiesta Bowl last year. Also a playoff between ranked 2 and 3, Clemson and Ohio State. Clemson a 7.5-point favorite. I think a lot of people, Drew, are going to see that Ohio State game against Northwestern and really question what Ohio State has without thinking about the fact that they were missing 22 players. They still won that football game.
Yeah.
I'm going to tip my hand. I love the Buckeyes here.
Ooh.
I love the Buckeyes in this spot.
This is outside of Liberty and Coastal Carolina, which, by the way, if you haven't watched that game, you need.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
So, as a fan, this is the game I'm looking forward to the most. I love the talking heads again that are normally in a 2019. If this is 2019 and Ohio State's only good win is a 7-point win over Indiana, yeah, you're absolutely right to question why they're here. Why they haven't played well all year, yada yada. That's fine. That's cute. Yeah. Sure, we haven't seen Ohio State play up to the talent that they have on their roster, but they also haven't had their entire roster. I mean, they just haven't. This is a team that played without their head coach for a game earlier this year, sat out, 2 games?
Yep.
Against Michigan and...
At least 1, if not 2, yeah.
Yeah. So I love that pick. If it's me, I still like Trevor Lawrence. There was something different about him in the Notre Dame game. And sure, that was a bit of a retribution thing.
That's what I think that was. I really do.
However, Dabo was writing a lot of checks with that mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his team knows that he's writing those checks and saying, go cash them. Which that might backfire. Which is why I like Ohio State in the points. But I'm going to take Clemson in a close.
I think Dabo's talking a bunch because I think he's scared.
Ooh.
Let's not forget, Ohio State came that close to beating Clemson last year.
It kind of should.
And it kind of should have. It kind of should have beat Clemson. I think he was lobbying to not have to play Ohio State.
Oh, he absolutely is.
Yeah.
No, he don't want no part of that Buckeye.
He don't want that smoke.
He don't need that smoke.
As the old middle-aged white guy here starts talking about that and doesn't actually know what the hell he's talking about. But
70 here.
Yeah. I saw it on wrestling. That's all I know. Either way.
These days.
I think Ohio State, you got the revenge factor. You've got Dabo talking smack. You got the fact that flat out Ohio State recruits just as well as Clemson does. Like, they do.
Yeah.
They recruit really, really, really well.
Yeah.
I think you see Ohio State take Clemson down in this football game. I love the Buckeyes. I just think they're the right team for this game. And I'm taking them on the money line.
I'm interested to hear your next pick after this. If that's
because now you're talking who wins the championship game.
Yeah, because I think there's only one team that can match up with Alabama, and
it's Ohio State.
Woo!
It ain't Clemson. It ain't Clemson.
Oh man,
Clemson. I know the recruiting rankings. I get all of it. Fine.
Sure.
I also saw what happened without their starting quarterback this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and granted, Lawrence was going to be on the field. Yeah. Whatever. Do I think if Alabama goes to Notre Dame and plays with a backup quarterback that Alabama loses that football game? Nope.
Ooh.
I think Alabama still wins that football game.
With Bryce.
Huh?
With Bryce Young. Yeah.
Alabama can turn around and hand it off to Najee Harris.
Oh, God. Just have
him murder people all game. It's fine.
Because, by the way, let's be clear here. The Heisman Trophy winner is the number 5 guy on the Heisman list, in my opinion.
It needs to be Devonta Smith this year.
Out of the 4, it needs to be Devonta. But in my opinion, the best player in college football right now,
Najee. Yeah, it's probably Najee.
I know who. Which, don't get me wrong, that's what the NFL draft is for. The NFL draft is who's the best overall talent, which you're still not going to see him get picked number 1. Najee Harris, to me, is the best player in college football this year, period, bar none.
I don't think Clemson plays with Bama. I don't see it. I don't think they've got the speed, especially on defense, to hang. Because Clemson's defense is a little bit slow. I don't know if you paid attention to that.
Slow, a little bit too Caucasian.
I think Ohio State is the only team that can hang with Bama. I don't know if they win. I don't know if they beat Bama.
Because I don't think anybody's going to beat Bama.
I don't either. I think Bama's good enough just that good.
And let me do this for you.
But if there's one team I think could do it, it's the Buckeyes. And part of me thinks, and I know there's people out there, including friends of ours who listen to this show, who think the Buckeyes shouldn't be in the playoff because they didn't play enough games and whatever. I think it'd be hilarious as shit if they won this whole damn thing after only playing 6 games this year.
And here's the reason why I'm halfway pulling for you. Who's out of anybody, really, other than Auburn, what's the one team that could beat him for a national title and piss off Nick Saban more than anybody?
Oh, yeah. Because it's happened once.
It's
happened in 2014.
Uh-huh. It wouldn't even be if Kirby beat him in 2017, if 2nd and 26 doesn't happen. It's Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from back in his days at Toledo and Michigan State.
Coaching for the Browns.
Yeah, coaching with the Browns. Just never feeling like he was good enough for Ohio State. I think now that he's kind of a little bit over that part. Yeah. But still, though, grudges like, and plus he's a West Virginia kid, so Ohio is just not his favorite place.
Yeah, I again,
if Ohio State's able to pull this off against one of the greatest Alabama teams that's ever laced up the boots,
I'm telling you now, if Ohio State, I already like them on the money line against Clemson. If they beat Clemson, I don't care what the line is. I'm taking the money line on Ohio State against Alabama because I think the value. Because I think Bama opens up probably a 10 to 14 point favorite in that matchup, and I think the value is there on a hypothetical matchup.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I can tell on my little money gaming thing. They already have the lines that are
for possible.
Because you're looking at Ohio State getting 9.5.
So that means the money line goes to 270, 280,
225,
300,
225.
No, 220. It's 220 right now for like 7.5.
That's what I'm reading right here. For the 9.5, Ohio State, Alabama. Alabama is a 9.5 point favorite. An over under of 72 and a hook.
That's not enough.
That
ain't enough.
That ain't enough. Now, let me also do this. If you just went straight up, who's going to win the national title right now? Ohio State's plus 900.
I might need to do that. All right, so we're both on Alabama to win the whole thing, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our playoff preview, folks. That's where we are. We got a couple of things we wanted to talk about because I know Drew had a hot take real quick before we finish up for the show. We just talked about the Big Six bowl games, the playoffs, and everything else. But there's been some minor games going this year, but a ton have been canceled because of COVID issues. And Drew brought up an interesting point before we went on the air, which is this the end or the beginning of the end for those small tier bowls? And I'm going to step out and let you take this because this was your topic and your thought.
This was an argument that Nick Saban kind of brought up whenever the play, and a lot of other coaches, not just Nick Saban, but a lot of other coaches brought this up whenever the playoffs really got started, and when this predates back to the Alliance Bowls back in the early 90s, because if you've remember pre-BCS, number 1 and number 2 weren't always guaranteed to match up. There were a handful of times where like a Colorado and a Miami or a Notre Dame would get into the same bowl, and we'd find who actually would win the national title. 97's the last real time we had a split national championship, even though you want to
That
talk
was the year before the BCS started. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you can talk about USC in 03, whatever. We all agreed on the rules. It's LSU in 03. It's why it's not Auburn in 04. But we've gotten to a point now where there are 4 teams, and in 2025, it's going to go up to 8. Just go on ahead and sit back and just enjoy yourself.
Good.
It will be 8 in 2025 whenever the contract's renewed because A, ESPN wants it, and B, there's a lot of money to be had. So
I think that's what will appease the group of 5 schools too.
It will because after this year, you're going to hear a lot more rumbling about that because you could really argue with me that Cincinnati and maybe Coastal Carolina should have been in. But that's an argument for a different day. My question is, with all these opt-outs and you started to see it a little bit with McCaffrey, who really started this off when he opted out of the Sun Bowl when he was playing for Stanford to get ready for the NFL draft, because now these always were glorified exhibition games, and it's why they didn't count towards stats until much later.
I think late 70s, early 80s is when they finally started counting them.
I think after Bo.
As late as the early 70s, the national title was awarded prior to the bowl games.
3 bowl games.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people went, yeah, well, okay, let's try to give a little bit more to the bowl games. Plus Notre Dame started to realize because I want to say 1924 was Notre Dame's first bowl game, and then they didn't play in another bowl game until the late 1960s because they finally realized, well, we're going to have to start playing in bowl games to win a national title, and they enjoyed collecting them. It's like rare coins. But we're finally getting to a point where the Music City Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, the Holiday Bowl, a lot of these bowls that we didn't get to see this year, but the Citrus Bowl, Texas Bowl, Armed Forces Bowl, the Gasparilla Bowl, where they flood a lot like baseball cards back when we were kids. They flooded the market with it and made it somewhat irrelevant. So my question to you, Brad, is with all the opt-outs, with these being literal exhibition games, like preseason NFL exhibition games, Auburn Northwestern is going to look a lot like that because you've got a bunch of freshmen out there playing. And then a couple of other stars. Bo Nix is going to play for Auburn, and Tank Bigsby's out with COVID protocol. So,
I didn't see that. Okay, great.
Yeah. Well, in the words of interim head coach Kevin Steele, we're not sure of his availability for Friday just yet. Meaning, see you next year, Tank. So, my question to you, Brad, is: once they go to 8 teams, could you see it to where that's it for your college football postseason? Do you see these bowl games just sort of losing the credibility?
I would argue to you that most of them don't have credibility as it is now.
True.
So, I mean, nobody was I was in Montgomery, Alabama last week. No one was clamoring to go to the Montgomery Bowl or the Camellia Bowl. Okay.
Wrong. March Buffalo was a good ball game.
Yeah, I wanted to go, but it was 40 degrees, and I wasn't going to sit outside in the cold for 2 teams I don't care about. So I wasn't going to go.
Especially when the running back for Buffalo wasn't playing. So
yeah. No, they're not going to go away. And here's why. And you mentioned it already. ESPN.
Yeah.
Content.
Inventory.
On the worst, people don't recognize people because you hear this all the time. Well, the bowls don't mean anything anymore. There's too many of them. You know why there's so many of them? It's because you watch them. The worst bowl game draws over 1 million people.
Still does better than the NBA.
Still does better than the NBA. Does better than the championship game of Major League Soccer.
Yep.
Right? Which is theoretically a major league sport here in the U.S., right? In big cities everywhere. Hell, I got season tickets. There's my freaking scarves up there. I got tickets to a team starting next year.
Up in France.
Yeah, you went to the World Cup, right? But it draws better ratings than your average baseball game nationally, right?
Yeah.
They're not going away because people love football. And people like betting on football in particular.
Now that's becoming much more prevalent and easy.
Yeah. So do I think you're going to continue to see more opt-outs? Yeah. I think fans are going to have to readjust their traditional thinking on bowl games, where it used to be, what's your record in a bowl game? Now it might be, well, okay, whatever. Doesn't really matter as much, because what are you using the bowl game for? Is it for next year? Is it to reward this year's guys? If you want to say what's your record in a Big Six bowl game, I got you there. Totally get it. The question for me is, what happens with that New Year's Six if you expand to an 18 playoff? Because does that first round in an 18 playoff take place at home? Because I think the argument you're going to have is it's too much travel, not only for the players, but for the fans. You're going to have a hard time filling up stadiums 3 different times in 3 different cities.
Yeah. No, in my opinion, what they could and probably should do is do the home
I would love it.
seed. I would love that. And then, if you really want to, poll the 4 teams that lost and say, you guys want to play in one more game just for fun, and then put those teams into the Fiesta.
The other 6 games. Yeah, so that would take care of 2 of the 4, right? So you'd have 2 playoff games in the Big Six games, 2 consolation games in the Big Six games, and then you can match up whoever the other 2. Like the top, you can match up 9 and 10 and 11 and 12.
And then just do somebody else like 9 and 10, or
it just rotates around. You'll have to get rid of the stupid contract like the Big 12 and the SEC have with the Sugar Bowl, or that the ACC has with the Orange Bowl. You'll have to put everybody into one big contract with the Power Six, with the Power Six games rather. But I think if you do that, that could be fun.
Even then, it would just be the Power 5, each conference, because then you have to have the argument of, okay, if you're a conference champion, is that out? Like, is that factored into the playoff?
Yeah, and that's going to be your first debate: is does the Power 5 conference champion automatically get in? I say no. I don't think it's right.
Oregon this year doesn't deserve to be in the playoff.
But if you want to tell me Oregon this year gets one of the other 4 Power 6 game slots that's outside of the playoffs
into that one,
fine. Because here's the way I would do it. I would do that first round of home games, I don't know, a week and a half after, maybe 2 weeks after the conference championship games. Because that would traditionally be December 15th or something like that, right around that range traditionally. Second round of games would be New Year's Day. So traditional semifinals. Third round of games a week or 2 later, like the final game a week or 2 later. And in between that semifinal and the final, and I would move the final off of Monday night, by the way. Let's get that crap on a Saturday.
It's going to happen. NCAA loves Monday night.
Get it on a damn Saturday so we can all sit back and drink and watch and be merry and be hungover the next day. And make it easier for people to travel, by the way, to the game, because you're asking them already to take at least 2 days off between Monday and Tuesday for traveling and being at the game. But that if you say championship game is now going to be the week of the 15th, okay, and that week in between you have those consolation games, so that those kids can have a true bowl week, and you have those consolation games or whatever in between. So now everybody at least that way gets a true bowl week as well, because the semifinals would be a true bowl week.
Well, and that was the original intent of the Sun Bowl and everything like that, was to celebrate a credentialed season. So I really like that plan. It makes too much sense for it to work.
So it's not going to happen.
No. That makes way too much sense for it to actually go through and happen. But I love that idea of if we're going to do an 18 playoff, which I think is about right.
Oh, it's
16.
8's fine.
I don't think 16.
They play 24 in 1AA, and it's crazy. Or the FCS.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The D2 bracket, because I'm a Valdosta State guy, is insane. No, I can't even keep up with it.
Yeah. All right. Final piece of business before we get out of here this week. Drew, you did win the pick'ems of the season by 1 game over me. A nice little comeback the last few weeks.
Dominant win.
Your bourbon of choice. You get to announce it. I get to send it. I think we had a $80 to $100 limit or something like that. So
yeah, I'll start looking it up because I did not think that I won. So
I almost caught you. I forget what even. I forget.
It would have had to have come down to like that.
The Oregon game gave me a game back on you immediately. Yeah. I know I picked a couple against you just because I had to make up ground, and I forgot which one ended up costing me. But there was one that cost me late, and
I was about to say
because I had. Oh, you know what? No, I had Oklahoma
because you had Oklahoma.
They were a 5.5 point favorite. They won.
Yeah.
It was one of the other.
It had to.
We both had Bama.
Uh-huh.
Both had Bama. I deleted it off of my thing here, so I forgot which one it was now. Oh, you know what it was?
You didn't take Notre Dame, did you?
No. I had Clemson. I think it might have been Cincinnati that burned me. I think you took Tulsa and the 10.5, and I took Cincinnati.
Yeah. And you took Cincinnati outright. That's exactly what happened.
So, Cincinnati won outright, but didn't cover. So that was the problem.
Yes.
So either way, you win, I lose. We were both, if you followed us along this year, we were both profitable. So, you would have made a little bit of money with us. Not a ton, but a little. Although if you played some parlays with us, for sure, we had some weeks where you could have really made money on parlays for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Anywho, that'll wrap up this week's episode as it'll be the final one of 2020. We're so glad that you joined us so far this year, guys. We're going to pivot. We'll still talk about football as we go along. Of course, recruiting's happening right now for the second signing day. We got the bowl games. We'll talk about the playoff next week. We're also going to start pivoting to basketball a little bit and starting looking ahead to college baseball. So for those of you who may be new to us, we're both very, very big into college baseball, particularly Drew. So I used to be a baseball broadcaster back in the day. Still do it on the side, some for some small college here around my area, and love the game. College World Series, the single best baseball thing I've ever been to, and I had the opportunity to go to the World Series this year up in Dallas. So it is something we love, but we'll also start talking hoops a little bit.
Yep.
And particularly Kentucky right now. Yeesh. Coach Cal is having problems up there.
He's starting
to look like Auburn circa mid-90s.
I was about to say Tony Barbie's used to this though. So
that's true. They do have Tony Barbie on staff. So yeah.
He just talked to Cal. Oh, Cal, this is normal.
Oh yeah. We're playing great basketball. So,
what are you talking about? We have a win.
Man, I watched Tony Barbie one night lose a game where his defense held the other team to 45 points. It was the worst game, 45-40. It was just god awful, and I paid to be there for it.
I still remember when that hiring went down. I went, we might about to be good.
It might be decent.
Good.
No, they opened up the new arena. They were like, they had the Harlem Globetrotters in for the night for like what do they call it? Midnight Madness or whatever. It was all excited. God, that guy sucked.
God, he was bad.
But he led us to Bruce Pearl, so it's all okay.
Exactly. Yes, he led us to becoming a basketball school. So
it's true. So anyway, we'll start getting into other college sports. We'll keep up with football, of course. We'll start talking about recruiting, like I said. We'll talk about bowl games, talk about spring practices, other coaching news that comes out. We'll definitely be following what's happening up in Boise and see how that domino affects things as well. So for Drew McCracken, I'm Brad Tilbury saying thanks so much for joining us. Hope you guys have a happy new year. Be safe out there. Be smart. I had to get COVID tested yesterday. Negative for now, but other family members, not so much. So be careful out there. It's not fun. My boss also has it. Not cool. And he says it's hell on earth. So just, be safe. Be smart. Order in some food. Get some tacos, whatever the case may be. And enjoy the new year that way. And we will talk to you guys at the turn of 2021. Take care, everybody.